Good morning. It's great to see everybody here today. I appreciate you coming out to listen to me speak. Um, for those of you who aren't aware of the topic that I'm presenting on, I was asked by many of the delegates here to discuss with you whether or not our faith as Christians, can integrate with common business practices. Basically, whether or not we as Christians can live for Christ in a business world, or whether those two unique worlds are completely separate. Over the course of this presentation, I will attempt to prove that yes, you can in fact integrate faith and business, and in fact, not only can you integrate them, but they are practically inseparable. Um, but let me start by asking everybody here this question: When you get up in the morning, when you get up and you go to work, why are you doing it? Why do you do what you do every day? For many of us, the answer is simply, well, I need a paycheck to live. I can't operate in this world without money, and so I have to have a job. For some of us, maybe you're in the medical field, or I know many of you here are members of the clergy, and you're here to make a difference in somebody else's lives. For many of you, it's simply just to provide for a family. The job that you have provides the salary that it takes for a family of your size to operate in this world. And even though you hate everything about your job, you have to provide for your family. And so you get up every day and you go to work. Well, I think Simon Sinek in his TED Talk reveals something very critical about our daily lives, very critical about how we operate as businesses. Because these whys that we bring with us to work, they often become part of the why for our business. The whys that we bring into work often become why we're working. And so it becomes part of the business's identity. It becomes part of your organization's identity, whether you intend it to be or not. I think Sinek says it exactly right when he says that people don't buy what you do. People buy why you do it. And so whether you're selling, used cars, whether you're in the medical field, whether you're providing a service such as, lawn care or architecture, no matter what it is that you do, no matter what product you're offering, no matter what service you're providing, people are not buying that product, that service. That's not what they're buying from you. This is what Sinek argues. He says that people are buying from you the reason that you're doing what you're doing. So if your reason is simply a paycheck, that's going to bleed over into your work. People are going to buy your product half-heartedly because you're doing your work half-heartedly. So that question, why do you do what you do, is so important. And I think a lot of us get stuck on these little reasons because, yes, absolutely, you do have to go to work to get a paycheck. That's non-negotiable. To operate in our world, you have to be able to provide for your family. For some of us that are providing a service for others, we go to work in order to better other people's lives, but that's not the end. All of these are little microcosms for the actual reason that we should be getting up every day, the actual reason that we should be doing what we're doing. Because you have to understand where you derive your purpose from. And I argue that we as Christians need to realize that our purpose comes from Christ. Our purpose is to further his kingdom. Our purpose is to be his light in the darkness. So when we get up every day, when we get up in the morning and we go to work, our purpose at work should be to further his kingdom while we're at work. It shouldn't be to get a paycheck. It shouldn't be to provide for a family, even though all of these things are very important. What's more important is understanding that we are the light for the world. We are representatives of Christ. We are here to make a difference for him. And he calls us to provide for our families. He calls us to be the light in the world. But we can't do all of these things unless we realize our purpose is derived from him, because everything else flows out of this why. And that's something that I'm going to dive a little bit further into. Because if you have Christ in the center of your life, if the why for us as Christians is Christ, then when we get up in the morning, when we go to work, everything that we do should be in an attempt to obey God and to follow his calling for us to obey the great commission, to be the light in the darkness, to bring people to him, to be Christ-like in our jobs. And once we understand that purpose, once we understand why we're doing what we're doing, once we understand that we are who we are because Christ made us that way, everything else as far as business and economics is all going to follow. Think about it this way. One of the biggest things that we as Christians are called to do is care for God's people. Think about the most important commandment that God gave to us. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, and love his people. The greatest commandment that he gave to us. And so when we go into work, our goal should be to care for his people. I work for a car rental agency. When I go into work, my goal should not be to rent the most cars, to be the best at my job. It shouldn't be to be the one that stands out so that I can get promoted and move up in the company. That's not what my purpose is. My purpose is to be the light in the world for Christ. And so when I go in, people have a need. Maybe their car was in an accident. Maybe they don't have a way to get to work. Maybe they don't have a way to get to the place that's going to provide a paycheck so that they can provide for their family. That's where I get to come in and I get to fill that need. And it's not because I'm so great or because the company's so great. It's because God has given us the ability to help other people. And that's how I have to approach my job. And that translates to every type of profession, every organization. There is a way that you can make a difference for Christ in the world, that you can care for his people. You just have to view it in those lenses. So my argument is that by putting people first and profit second, your organization will flourish. A great example of that is Chick-fil-A. The amount of money that they could make being open simply one more day a week is astronomical. Especially think of the after church rush. We as Christians go to church every Sunday, and after lunch, how many times do you see people scatter in different directions to go to restaurants all across town? Well, if Chick-fil-A was open, we know that they would greatly benefit from that rush. And yet, Chick-fil-A doesn't open on Sundays. They're caring for the people around them. They're caring for their employees. They realize that their purpose comes from God. That's the those are the um, those are the guiding principles that they were founded on. And you know what? The prophets had followed because even though they stick their neck out, even though they're very firm in their political and religious beliefs, people come back to them time after time because when you go to Chick-fil-A, there's a difference between that and other restaurants. You can tell that they care for you as a person. They put your needs first, and that's why you keep going back. It's not the product that they're offering. You can get a chicken sandwich almost anywhere, but you go back to them because they treat you like a child of God, or at least that's what they're supposed to do. And the sales followed. As with that as their guiding principle, people keep coming back to that time and time again because you know that you'll be treated like a child of God when you go there, or at least 9 times out of 10. People come back to these good service experiences. If your goal in the customer service realm is to treat people like children of God, then I don't care what it is that you do, whether you're selling something, whether you're providing a service, whether you're simply just a receptionist talking to people on the phone. You will make a difference in their lives simply by treating them the way that God asked you to treat them. And then they are going to keep coming back time after time after time because they know that when they need this product, this part of the business that's actually secondary that we usually put as the primary focus, they will keep coming back and back time after time after time to you specifically because they know that you're going to treat them right. So that why that you have, it flows into the what? It flows into the profits. And that's why economics and faith are so intertwined. They can't be separated. And again, talking about people, our greatest commandment, like I said earlier, is to take care of people first and foremost, to remember that they are children of God. There's many businesses out there. Chick-fil-A is a great example. I know that the company Enterprise is built off these same principles, that putting the customer and the employees first is the most important thing that you can do. By treating the people in the business first, everything else will follow. If you take care of the needs of the employees and the needs of the customers, the employees will stay happy. They'll work harder for you. They'll follow your mission or your why, and the customers will keep coming back to you time and time and time again because they know that the service they get there is going to be incredible. Because you're remembering that they are children of God. You're putting their needs before your profit, and that it sticks out in people's mind. And it's not just Chick-fil-A and Enterprise. There's other companies such as Home Depot, takes this philosophy, and you watch these companies, they just keep going up and up and up because they have their priorities straight. Because it's not as contrary as it sounds, putting profits second actually helps increase them because people return for these good customer service experiences. I like the way that Collins puts it in his book, From Good to Great. You have to establish this why in order to create a team. The people who work for you are some of the most important people in the organization, arguably more important than the customers because they're the ones that make the business what it is. But you can't just create a team and walk away. You have to create the why. You have to understand, why are you doing what you're doing, not just as a person, but as a business. What is the reason for your business? And that's not the product. That's the underlying reason that you get up in the morning and your employees get up in the morning and that your business exists. It's not to create a product. It's not to provide a service. As Christians, it's to be the light in the world and to serve his people. And so you have to create a team that is tailored around that. You have to create a team that is able to get up in the morning and follow that why, because their why is your why. It's not because you've brainwashed them into believing that. This is part of the team creation process, part of the interview process. You have to understand people, understand their goals, understand their whys. And if they're a good fit, you need to get them on board and get them on board fast, because that's who your team needs to be built around. Because team members that are bought in on the why, team members who believe what your company believes, they perform better. And not only that, but they will keep your company's best interest in mind. Think about how many companies out there give their employees freedom to make decisions, and the employees make decisions that are only profitable for them. Salesmen and saleswomen that are out there selling product dishonestly, lying about the product, adding extra fees on there that shouldn't exist, making you buy something that you shouldn't in the form in additions to the actual product, lying to you about their necessity, things like that. This dishonesty and this cheating, it comes out of a personal selfishness. But team members that are bought in on your why will put you and your company first, not because of you, not because of the company that they work for, but because they understand that there's a bigger purpose. There's a bigger reason that they get up in the morning and that they go to work every day. They will further the kingdom of God before they further their own, because they understand that they are who they are because Christ made them that way. That's the kind of team that you need to create. And that's what Collins is talking about. The creation of a team is integral to creating a good business. You don't create a good business and then find team members. You do it the opposite way. The team members create the business. Now let's talk about economics for a minute. We've talked about businesses, we've talked about team members, we've talked about customers, we've talked about our purpose. But where does the idea of economics, the study of economics, where does that intertwine into this furthering of God's kingdom? Well, take a minute and think about what your personal gifts are. God has given every single one of us some kind of gift, some kind of talent that we are called to use to further his kingdom, to use for his glory. For me, I know that I have a talent for business. I've got a keen mind for it. I understand it, and I'm good at implementing it. It's not because of my own personal strength, it's because of what God's given me. And there are many other people out there that are like me that have this keen sense of business. That's something that God has instilled in us, and that's not something that should be hidden away like we're often told, but it's something that should be celebrated and used for his glory. Because business and economics can further his kingdom. Think about all the many issues out there that are completely wrapped up in economics. For instance, the instance of slavery. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but that is an economic issue. Think about the underground economy, people buying things illegally, people selling illegal substances. All of that is an economic issue. The idea of a national poverty, countries that are not just people impoverished, but the country as a whole is impoverished. Or even countries out there that are financially well off, but little sections of the company, or excuse me, of the country throughout the entire country suffer with poverty. That's what we focus on. That's what we face in America. A country that is financially strong, but have these pockets of poverty that just don't seem to be taken care of. Even the idea of terrorism can be linked back to economics. So you think, how does all of this tie into economics? How are these issues economic issues? Well, let's take slavery as an example. There's a lot of common misconceptions out there involving slavery. First of all, a lot of people seem to think that slavery is a problem of the past. They could not be more wrong. Slavery is a current issue. Just because we don't face it here in America, or at least openly, does not mean that it doesn't exist throughout the globe. It is a national issue that we need to be aware of. People seem to think that that's not an economic issue, that's human rights, and that all we need to do is just buy these people out of slavery. We need to use our financial resources here in America to make the difference in the lives of others and buy them out of slavery. Well, what we've learned through Bale's article, through his video, is that buying people out of slavery does not solve the problem, it only increases it. Because the people that you're buying them from are just going to go out and enslave more people so that they can get more and more money. So what we really need to be doing is using our financial resources properly. We need to be supporting organizations that can physically stop the slavery, who have the legal authority to stop the slavery. We need to go through those proper sources, and we can't buy people out of slavery. We need to use our financial and economic resources to help make a more stable economy that can then in turn support people that are coming out of slavery. It's an economic issue. So, given all of these issues, given that we face not only slavery and terrorism, but things such as poverty and underground markets, all of it's an economic issue. And so, how do we take what I talked about at the beginning by keeping Christ at the center and turn those into solutions? Solutions to fix these problems. Well, we just talked about slavery. There are actual economic ways to solve slavery. Just in the same way, there are economic ways to solve poverty. There are economic ways to solve terrorism. And just as God did not make us one-dimensional, the issue is not one-dimensional. It's not just an economic issue, but it does involve economics. See, we often take everything and we put them into little boxes and we keep things separate. But economics and human rights and issues of Christ and his kingdom are not all separate, they are all together. And so for my final proposals, I want to first of all suggest that we keep Christ at the center. We don't put profits first. We don't put ourselves first. We don't even put our employees first or our customers first. We put Christ first. And then we allow the overflow of our heart. If we fill our hearts with Christ so much that we are overflowing, that overflow will then pour into the outflow, pour into the business, and to pour into the actual day-to-day operations of our businesses. And we need to ignore all of the voices out there that are saying that Christians and economics, that's not two things that are mixed. That the business world is an idea of the secular world. The economic and business world is an idea that Christ gave to us. The skills to maintain it, they are from Christ. And so we should be doing what we do as an attempt to obey him. It's not that we're going into a secular idea, a secular world, and being the light. That's our world that's been taken over, and we need to take it back. Economics is biblical, and we're called for economics. As well, think about all of the ministries that are out there that are used to fulfill God's calling for us. Without businesses and organizations that can support these nonprofits, they wouldn't be able to do nearly the amount of work that they are able to do now. And lastly, I just call each and every one of us to remember our why. Remember why we're doing what we're doing. Remember whose we are. And that will tell us why we're doing what we're doing. I appreciate everybody being here today. I appreciate everybody coming out to join me. And I hope you were able to glean something from this topic. Thank you very much.